tree, so it's different. Huh?
Welcome, everyone, to our third live session of the Social Entrepreneurship for Innovations in Health course. Our apologies for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties, but we are really happy to be able to join us here today. As you know, this course is part of the Making More Health initiative, a partnership between Ashoka and Boehringer Ingelheim, with the intention of exploring innovative pathways to improve access to healthcare for people, animals, and communities around the world. Before we start, I would like to remind the participants that are watching us live to please scroll down and click yes to the survey that you're watching live so that you can receive your extra points. And also, I would like to share with you that next week, we will start with our practical assignments on the course. You will need to upload them to the platform, and we encourage you to read your peers' assignments and comment on them, and also to gain new insights. And now it's a pleasure to have here with me today our guest expert, Tony Joy. Tony is a social entrepreneur and Ashoka Fellow from Nigeria. She's the founder and CEO of Durian, a social enterprise that seeks to empower rural farmers in Nigeria and West Africa. She's a passionate advocate for women's empowerment and sustainable agriculture. She has spoken at the World Economic Forum, the Global Entrepreneurship Summit, and among other international venues. Tony Joy's dedication to social entrepreneurship and her commitment to empowering rural farmers in Nigeria and beyond make her a true inspiration and leader in her field. It's a pleasure to have you here today, Tony Joy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Natalie.
Very excited, and thank you so much for your patience again with the whole technical difficulties that we had to face at the beginning. So to begin, I would love if, Tony, if you can share with us a little bit about your professional career, your professional journey, and also the story of Durian.
Okay, Natalie, thank you so much. The story of Durian is very much incomplete without sharing my story, because my story gives a background to why I do what I do and why the work we're doing is the way it is. So I'm one of those people who grew up being told that I would amount into nothing, that I was good for nothing, that I was a mistake of a child, and that I was a waste. And I would want us to pay attention to the word waste. And so for that reason, I hated myself. I hated living. At the age of 16, before the age of 16, I tried committing suicide twice because I was really frustrated about life in itself for so many reasons. But one very reason that was dear to me was the fact that I lost my dad when I was 12. And my dad was the only person that could see me while he was there. That's the way I felt while I was young. But then having lost him, I lost everything that mattered to me. I was seeking attention. I couldn't get attention. I couldn't express myself. I lost my confidence, my esteem, everything left me. Hence trying to commit suicide because I was frustrated and tired. But then at 16, after I tried suicide twice and it didn't work out, I decided to leave home. And somewhere in my head, I felt I was living into a better life because I felt, oh, finally I would find a group of people who would love me and accept me. And actually was the opposite that happened to me, completely the opposite. I firsthand experienced poverty, homelessness, struggle to pay my fees, struggle to make money. I started working at a very early age, started teaching and struggling to make income and all of that. And at the same time, I wanted to find my way into the university. So I had to struggle also to find my way into the university. Got very little support through school, had to struggle through university, had to struggle to take care of myself, to feed myself, to clothe myself, for everything. And as a result of that, I experienced a whole lot of assault in different ways. A lot of people treating me exactly the way they told me I was when I was young, that I was a waste. So people really treated me that way. And I felt that was what my life was going to look like, for a long part. Until while I was in university, and this is the turning point for me, when I was in university, even though I looked unkept sometimes and I wasn't looking, taking care of myself, I was the person who would have almost the same kind of clothes. People knew me as there was an identity. For so many reasons, I had an identity that people knew. But even in my emptiness and in my nothingness, people would come to me and say, Tony, I have this problem. What can I do? Or Tony, what can I do with my life? Or what can I do in a situation like this? And for once, I felt I was useful. Just that one time in my life, I felt I'm not a waste. Some people see me and someone needs me. And that became the turning point for me, because I said I was going to do something different with my life. I'm going to try as much as possible not to give up. And I also made the commitment that if I'm able to pull myself out of this feeling, I would help others who feel like me in any way, or because people have said something about them, I would help them feel different about themselves. And that's how my journey into the social development space started. So I started working in that line to say, I want to build myself, but I also want to help others tell their stories differently and understand that they can make their story different. And in between finding that part, I fell in love with physical waste. And so I would make things out of PET bottles. I would make things out of any kind of waste that I find around. I love the environment. I figured out early. And so much so I love creativity. I love creating things. And that was also the new part for me. And it was as I continued on that journey, I figured out that my stories like waste, that has been given another opportunity to retell it, so to retell my story. So I call myself the metaphor called waste, given another opportunity to retell my story and help others to retell their stories. And gradually I continued on that path, and rural communities has been so dear to me from the word go. I love simple spaces. I love the beauty of communities. I don't know, I see the difference in communities. People see it differently, but I see beauty. And I knew when I found my own true story that I would love to work within rural communities, and I would love to transform stories using my own story, but also using the physical wastes that people have around them. And that's how I started my journey into communities. And also that's why the name of the organization is called Durian. Durian is a fruit that stinks, but tastes good. And it has so many similarities with the work that I do. First of all, my story, I was told that I was a waste, but I'm grateful today. I am Tony, the same Tony. The second thing is waste materials are often said to be useless, but for me, they're very useful. And it can be useful for, it's the future. Waste is the future. Waste is circularity, waste is green economy. There's so many things around waste that we're not really talking about. And then the very last thing is rural communities are often said to be poor and marginalized and underdeveloped, but I see rural as beautiful and cool. And I think we can change the narrative from poor and marginalized to rural is cool. And that's what informs the work that I also do at Durian. So at Durian, what I do is help people in communities use what they have, their local waste and resources, to create a new pathway for them, to create a new story for them, and to also create a new identity for them. So that's a summary of why I do what I do today. Thank you.
I love the story, Tony. It's like really, really touching and really empowering. And congratulations for the amazing inner work that you've done to just like really transform that. It's really, really beautiful. And you said you're 20 years old?
No. I started when I was way younger. Now I'm 30. I'm 31 now.
Okay. Is it? I thought you said something about 20, and I was like, what? No.
No. I started when I was really young. I started my journey when I was about 20, 21 years of real transformation for myself. But I did not achieve it until I was about 27, 28. That's when the first time I felt that I've changed something within me. So it took a long time for me to feel change within myself and to be able to transfer that out too.
And that's all that it takes. We really need to just transform ourselves first and then share it with the world. And I know that you have a video that you're going to share with us today. So let me see if I can share that with our audience. 1 second. A second. Screen.
Hello there. Do you know Nigeria has over 200 million people, and 48% of this population live in rural communities, according to World Bank? Of the population that live in rural communities, another research shows that 80% cannot afford 3 meals in a day. This shows that many people live in extreme poverty. However, there is something I find interesting about rural communities. These are the resources that they have that they are not aware of, and hence they treat it as waste. These resources, if sustainably used and utilized, can transform their unique identities. But the challenge is that most of these communities are not aware of the value of what they are and what they have. This is where I work precisely. I am Tony Joy from Nigeria, and I help Nigerian rural communities understand the value of what they have and who they are. In one sentence, I implement sustainability in the context of rural development. I help communities focus on what they do best, what they produce best, and what natural resources they have around them. And in doing this, they generate income and regain their unique identity. Says the rural community cannot be hubs for innovation and development in environmental sustainability, healthcare, education, or economic development. This is what I do. I am creating hubs for sustaining rural identity while providing the knowledge and skills that is needed to be relevant in the global market. I see the resources they have and what they can make out of it. Concretely, I train women from local rural communities in Akure through my organization, Durian, to create value from what is available around them and connect them to the right markets. Most rural communities in Nigeria have agri-waste. One community could have cocoa pod husk in large quantities, while another could have, let's say, palm kernel shells. Community entrance, which entails engaging community leaders and stakeholders in conversations and discussions about the organization and what we do and the possibilities that we see in the community. I identify the different kinds of local resources available in the community. Once I identify this, I look out for people who have the experience in the field and understand the value of what can be made out of this given resource and waste. When I identify the possibilities and try a pilot to see how it works, I gradually then introduce the community to the idea. For example, when I entered Imafon community, I realized that they have a lot of cocoa pod husk, and I did some research and discovered that it could be used to make body soaps. I then introduced the women in the community to the idea and offered to show them how to do it. Gradually, we got women who are willing to learn. Now, it is one of the things that the women in our facility are known for.
Wonderful. I love this video. It's really inspiring. Oops, sorry. Today is a day of technical glitches. So Tony, thank you so much for sharing your story and for sharing this beautiful video that just really made us feel that we are there with you. Something that I would like to ask you is, many people, including the scholars, say that the first steps are the most difficult ones. Based on your successful story of launching Durian, what would you say are the most important things to consider when somebody's starting?
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Natalie. So honestly, starting most times is often the most difficult thing to do. And some of the things, I'll just share 3 things that helped me during my start period. And then I hope it also helps others. The first thing I did was to network. once you've been able to figure out the idea, and you know what you want to do, there are others who want to do something close to what you're thinking about. And that's why sometimes you have an idea, even if you don't start it, you realize someone else is doing something very close to it, or you realize someone else is starting exactly what you were thinking about. It might be somewhat different, but it's just going to say that a lot of people have similarities in how they think, and with regards to ideas for change and ideas for sustainability. And some other people have already even started it. So it would be nice to really connect with people who are doing something similar in the field, in the sector. And most times you can connect through programs, through fellowships, through events that are going on, but just network as much as possible so that you can ground yourself a little more in what you really want to do. And that was what I did. And it helped me build a base. The second thing that I'd recommend is volunteer. Volunteer with other organizations that have done something or are doing something similar. When I mean doing something similar, a different social enterprise might be a different thematic area or the same thematic area, but look for social enterprises or organizations that are looking for people to volunteer. Volunteering gives you an opportunity to learn as you help. So it's serving, but you're also learning, which builds a foundation for you also to experiment when you are starting out your idea. Added to that is if you're not willing to volunteer, then intern, but serve, like create a system for yourself where you can serve others. And in serving, you also learn. And the final thing I would say is people always say do it afraid. True. But I'll add start small to it. Do it afraid, fine, but also start small. Because sometimes, especially in the world right now, where we are tempted to just think about scaling and numbers and all of that, we don't really talk so much about the impact of starting small. And it's very important to start small because when you start small, as you advance, it helps you to grow gradually and learn on the process.
Perfect. I love it. Actually, it's part of what we have also been studying about starting small in the sense of like testing, piloting, and then receiving the feedback. And then if you need to change anything, you iterate, you just do it again. But like the whole idea is to just have like direct contact, as you were saying, with the people that you're serving, you know, either through volunteering, interning, but just like have that direct customer experience. And then like just launching it and then piloting and then like iterating. Wonderful. Thank you so much for all this advice. And once you actually have developed your first program, what would you say are some concrete strategies for advancing your innovative solution?
Since the last thing I said was starting small, so I'll pick it up from there. So because when we start small, one thing that we begin to see which can help us to advance, the first one is to review what has been done. So when we start small, it's very instrumental. It will be very instrumental if we document the process. So because you document the process, it's easy for you to first then be able to review what has happened, see the gaps, see the mistakes, and see what can be done better. Because sometimes we start small and we don't check it. And if we're able to check it, we can grow. So the first thing I would say is check the processes. The second thing is, as you review the processes and all of that, begin to think about systems that can help you to scale without losing your values. Because sometimes it's easier to think about growth, but we don't understand sometimes that we lose our value system, we lose our foundational, the building, we lose the foundation of why we started, we lose our why in the process of growth. And so once you review it, build a system that keeps you grounded. And the system could be in any form, but just think about what system and what process can I put in place that will keep me grounded so that as I continue to grow or as I continue to scale, I'm doing it the right way. Once you figured out, these are things that you do internally, right? Once you figure this out, then the next thing can then be seeking partnerships, seeking people that can help you to expand upon what you're doing, working with people with similar values to help you grow what you're doing, and it can help you. Partnerships are one of the most important things, once you're done with the internal grounding, partnerships help, build scale and help you reach as much people that you want to reach, help you grow in a different way, help you with creativity and all of that. And then the final thing I would say, be a lifelong learner. especially when it has to do with learning about how systems work and how change works. Change takes time. So to assume that you can grow from 0 to 100 in just 1 month or in 1 year is to just deceive ourselves, or to build a foundation that is not strong, or to even destroy a foundation that's already been built or has been built in the past. So just be a lifelong learner of social impact, and it's exactly how systems work.
I love it. So much wisdom, Tony Jo. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since you were mentioning partnerships, I know that you have also broadened your social impact by partnering with like large corporations and organizations like Unilever, SAP, World Connect, and to scale to other communities within Nigeria and even through West Africa. Can you tell us what are the benefits that you get from working with large companies, and what do you bring to the table?
Interesting. And why I say interesting is there is a different perspective to how we look at partnering with corporations, right?
Okay.
And sometimes people look at partnering from the perspective of finance and funding to scale. But the way I look at it, the foundation for me, and the way I look at it is about knowledge. Because I feel so much that there is a lot that social enterprises or social impact projects or programs can learn from the corporate. And there is a whole lot that the corporates can learn from the social enterprises. And for me, that has been the level of partnership I've had so far. And it's been very instrumental to the growth that we have had as an organization. What we've done is to learn from those that have done it. So for instance, if you're talking about scaling, a lot of big businesses, a lot of big corporates have done this over and over again. So they've done moving from one country, one continent to the next continent, either in the business, moving their businesses. So it means there is something they know about entrance into communities or entrance into new countries, entrance into new places. That's something that we can learn. Now, for social enterprises like us, we have so much in touch with the people on the ground. So there is a lot that we know about the people. There's a lot that we know about how to reach the people, so that for me is the foundation of the kind of partnerships that we're building that is helping us to scale that exchange, the knowledge exchange. And I think that we need to really think about it a lot more from this perspective, because funding is good, but funding is good if the intention is clear. Yes, one, but also if there is a partnership beyond money that can help you learn how to do things the right way. Yeah, so I feel like this is something that is very important. And for us, honestly, this is one of the biggest things that we've done in terms of partnership and all of that, is getting knowledge. And as a result of that, we then get the financial support we need.
100%. I think like it's a knowledge partnership that is a lot more valuable sometimes, as you were saying, than actually any concrete donations and funding that you can receive. My team is actually sharing with me that we have more than 80 people watching us live, and that they're very inspired by your story. So they just wanted you to know.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes. And regarding that, what you were also saying about like your knowledge and your expertise working with other stakeholders like the communities, what would you say are the conditions necessary to establish really strong partnerships with all the stakeholders?
I would say that for one, the first thing would be understanding what and why you want to establish these partnerships, because if the intentions are not clear, then you might make mistakes. And it's very, very important to note that not all partnerships are good partnerships. There are stakeholders that you need to relate with, that's true. But also when it has to then do with partnerships, let's say partnerships to scale or partnerships to help you reach a particular goal, not all partnerships are healthy. And that is why the foundation is very important, the value systems and the why. So we need to be very, very sure as social enterprises or as people who are driving impact, what is our why? And why do we need this partnership? What do we want to get out of it? What does it mean for us? Because sometimes when we partner with people, we forget that they have their own value system. Yeah. And people have a tendency of assessing my value system in relationship with the other person's value system.
Right.
So for instance, as an organization that is interested in circular economy and building circular systems, if I have a partnership with someone that is like a foundation or a company, let me use a company that is taking resources from the earth without doing anything about it, or that is causing a lot of carbon emission without doing anything about it, and then I go into a partnership with that person, people then assess my value system based on of that. And that's why it's very, very important to be very careful with that and understand exactly what we want to do. And also common values, I'd mentioned that, and the clarity of the what and the why. Aside from that, to build partnerships, sometimes it takes time. And that is why strengthening your network system or our network system is very, very important. And there are different ways to do this, right? There's so many ways to do it, but find a way to really strengthen your network system so that it's easy for you to walk into places and talk about what you're doing to the right people and get their buy-in into what you are doing also. So be in the right circle. Let me put it that way. Just be in the right circle of people that can influence you to help you influence others.
Perfect. I was just taking notes of what you were saying. So I would just like do a little summary. So basically it's just to build a strong foundation in terms of who are you partnering with and why. So just to make sure that your value systems are aligned, that your vision is aligned, and that you have a really clear why.
Yes.
And then it will be about strengthening your network and being in the right circle.
Yeah.
Perfect. One more question about partnerships, and we can keep moving on. But what have you learned? What are your lessons learned from these partnerships?
One of the biggest lessons I've learned, especially with partnership with the corporate, is that we have a lot in common. And we just need to be human enough to acknowledge that.
I love it.
That's one of the that's the biggest lesson I've learned. Let me just leave it at that.
Yeah. I think it's wonderful. It's just like watching all the commonalities instead of the differences.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
And honestly, just be human about it, because no matter how big you think the corporates are, or no matter how small we think the social enterprises are, no matter what, humans are driving it. And whatever it is we're doing, we are doing it to solve problems for humans. Right. So be human about it. It's very important. There's a human-centric approach to things that I think we're not paying attention to, and we need to really pay attention to the fact that exists, and everybody is curious about, or is in need of connectivity, is in need of understanding there's a culture around that shared. There's this similar culture. People want to feel connected. People want to feel that they have shared values with others, no matter if it's a corporate or it's a social enterprise or it's just an individual, whatever it is, there is a need for connection, right? And that is something that I think we miss out a lot, and we need to go back to that.
Yeah, I love it. It's really going back to like the basics. We are all humans, and even if it's like a huge corporation with like multi-million dollars, they are run by humans. And when you meet one-on-one and you just connect, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly
Thank you so much for that.
Yes.
I also have a question from the audience.
Okay.
Peter Van den Borg wants to know, how do you measure success within your initiatives along the way?
Okay. For us, we measure success and impact from 3 very important points of view. We look at the social impact it's having, right? What does it mean for the people? What is changing as a result of our intervention? And included in that is the behavior of the people we're working with. Are we transforming mindsets? Is there any mindset shift? What can we use to say it's practical? What is happening practically? We look at the economics of the people that we are working with. Is something changing? If they were earning $5 before the intervention, are they now earning 10 or 15 or 12? What changes can we see? And what does that mean for their families, right? And the final one we look at is the environment, because we want to contribute as much as we can possibly in a positive way to the environment. So we create indicators for success from all of these aspects. And the final thing that is not based on any of these indices is, are the people owning the process of change? Is change beginning to happen from within? If change is beginning to happen from within, then we can absolutely say that, yes, something is changing. I don't know if I still have some time to just share an example of what has happened.
Yes,
that would
please.
say,
We love examples.
Yeah, so when we went into the first community that we started our work, when we went into the community, we had big issues with the men. And that's because there is a culture that is a tradition that was silently just in the community that says that women are not allowed to work. They're not allowed to be found in big circles and in groups, right? And so we had big challenges with the men in the community who says their wives cannot come, the girl child, she should be married, she should go and all of that, she should go to her husband's house. And it was difficult at that. I mean, if you ask me what's the biggest challenge that we've had, it would have been that. And even in scaling to other communities, is still that. The fight of there's a culture and a tradition that we need to break.
Right.
And it takes time. Yeah. And we continued working in this community for a while. It was difficult. The first meeting we had over 20, 25 women who came for the meeting. And after that, it went down to 5 because they couldn't come out. They don't have the right to make their own decisions.
A very strong resistance from
exactly. Yeah. And we continued working in the background. What we were doing differently, instead of fighting the men and talking too much and shouting and making it too obvious that it is a fight, because it was not a fight. It was never a fight. It's about how do you create stronger systems within communities. So what we did was to continue working with the women to see how they can be the ones to lead the change. How they can be the ones to go and tell other women that it's possible, how they can be the ones to support other women who have problems at home with their husbands to understand that it can be done differently and it's fine, nothing bad is going to happen. And before we knew it, I mean, this took us like 2 years, honestly. It took some time, I would be honest. And before we knew it, what happened is that we saw more men bringing their wives or the girl child to the facility to learn, as against what was happening in the beginning. And one very interesting thing that then happened, which we used to measure our success, is as part of the issues that we saw in the community was assaults. Men would beat their wives and tell them, it was just a standard for men to beat their wives. And after like 2 years and 2.5 years, we had a group of women who were part of the Durian system who formed like a solidarity group. And this is what they do. If you threaten to beat your wife or you beat your wife, they go as a group to your house and tell you the next time you touch this woman, we will come and beat you. And that's, for us, is like something, we didn't even say that happening, but it happened. And for us, that's how we measure success. The mindset shift and the ownership of the processes. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's really great. I was taking note of all the things that you were saying. I feel like, how do you measure impact? Mindset shift. And it's like the ownership of that change. So it's empowerment. The people feel empowered and that they actually are the change agents themselves.
Yeah.
The economic impact, the impact on family relationships and the environment. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I have another question. I want to keep, because we have the technical difficulty, we're going to have a shorter session. So I would love to keep going on with questions from the audience, if that's okay.
Okay.
Can you talk more about the importance of authenticity and trust building when working with rural communities? Hilda Graves.
Oh, thank you so much for that question. Trust is one of the largest factor or the most important factor when it has to do with making entrance into a community. And there are different ways to be able to do that. And for us, what we do to build trust, one, my story helps me to build trust with the women in the community so that they know I am not coming as a savior, I'm coming as one of us. So we are going to work on it together. That's one. So what's your story? Where are you coming from? Why do you want to do the work that you're doing? What mindset guides what you're doing? Are you looking at it as I want to save the world? Or I want to inspire others to create a change? Because there are different ways, to look at it. So it depends on how you view it. So that would help you to either build trust or destroy whatever relationship you're building. Because already existing in some of the communities is the mindset that anybody who comes is trying to come and help us. Right. And by help, they mean give us money, help us with anything that we need. That charity model where you just drop things and go away. But for you to get to the point where you say, no, I'm not building a charity model. I'm building a system where we can co-work together, where we can co-create to solve problems. That needs some different level of trust building, honestly. And apart from story, It is just connecting with the people where they are. One thing importantly that we do is this: we do not try to change the people's identity about who they are. Let me be clear on that. What I mean is this: rural communities have a way they love to be represented, right? They have what they call their local identity. We do not try to break them from their local identity.
Right.
We add on to their local identity. As long as it's not hurting anyone, as long as they're not hurting anybody, they're not causing blood, they're not doing anything evil, we add on to their identity so that as they are in their space, they are proud of their local identity, because that's something we want to see happen, that rural is cool, rural is creative, and there's nothing wrong with being rural. But then we then bring in what knowledge and skills do they need, even as they are, with what they know, to create a change for themselves and for the communities. And so because we use that methodology, it also helps us to build trust, because we are doing it together. So trust, I mean, I absolutely agree that trust building is one of the most important things to pay attention to while working in communities. And also very importantly, it's not about being a savior, it's about working with the people.
Totally. Yeah. I feel like when somebody comes with that perspective of like being a savior or wanting to help, it's a little bit of a top-down approach. Versus when you come a little bit more humbly and just wanting to see what the other person has to share and what can you bring to the table as well, and you meet yourselves and you co-create, as you're saying. Yeah.
And because honestly, rural communities, people assume that they don't have anything to offer apart from farming and tilling the soil and all of that, but it's not true. It's absolutely not true. I've seen it happen. They are human like all of us. And I don't know why we created that dichotomy to make it look like they cannot offer anything. They have all it takes to run systems. They have everything. They've had traditions and they've had an history of building systems that we need to even go and learn. Yes. But instead, where we're limiting it, no, they have all it takes to run. So that openness to saying, I know you have something and we would work together on this, it helps a lot.
Definitely. And I think I shared with you on our prep session that it totally also reminded me of a program that I participated in some slums in Brazil. It was about, we would go to like this neighborhood and it was about finding the beauty and the assets. And what you would see, you would think like, oh, there's poverty here. There's like trash everywhere, just, but then it was all about really finding what is like the goodness and the durable fruit in there. And it really changed my perspective of seeing social and economic development when I participated. And I feel is very much the foundation of your work too.
Yes, very, very true. Very true.
Amazing. So I would love to ask you another question. And that is related to the challenges that you have faced when you were bringing Durian to new locations. What would you say would be the biggest challenges?
The biggest challenge that we've had is with the people. And why I say the people is because there has always been, or there is a pre-existing mindset that, like I've mentioned, of come and save us. There's a begging bowl, so they hold the bowl. And for everybody that comes in, because that's what we are often, they've been told that they cannot do it. So they want people to always come and fill in the bowl. And then when we come and say, no, we're asking you to drop the bowl and let's work, because we need these hands to be free. We don't need a bowl in your hand anymore. It becomes a challenge. It begins to look like, oh, you don't understand where we're coming from. You don't understand that we need food. You don't understand that we need water. And it takes us time to work with especially the leaders in the communities. It takes us time to help them understand. We understand and we see that you need this. But we also see that you have what it takes to create it from within. That's the biggest challenge, to get to that point where we say, drop this and just understand that you have all it takes within to make it work. The difference is access to knowledge and skills. In some areas, we can open up access to knowledge and skills for you to own it from within and make it work. So that's been like, and always, I think it's always going to be the challenge when we're going into communities, that there's a pre-existing mindset. And we're coming to say we can change the mindset to help us build systems within communities that helps women to grow, but also help you manage your waste in a different way.
Wonderful. Yes, I can see how that would be like definitely a challenge, but that's like also the biggest success to be able to change that mindset. And yeah, totally. So we're running out of time, but I would like to still have a couple more questions, if that's okay. So what we have some social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs that are participating in the course right now. So what tips would you give for the social entrepreneurs to successfully collaborate with social entrepreneurs and vice versa? What tips would you give to the social entrepreneurs to successfully partner with social entrepreneurs?
Okay. The one very important tip I always have is the fact that change is a system. We need a whole system to be able to drive change, right? So be you a social entrepreneur or a social entrepreneur, we need each other to drive change. It's not a competition. It's a thing of, this is what we believe can work. We listen to each other and work together. It's just work together, because we cannot do it alone. Social entrepreneurs cannot do it alone. Social entrepreneurs cannot do it alone. We need each other. And to drive change, we need to be able to fit ourselves into the whole system. So entrepreneurship alone is not the way forward. Entrepreneurship alone is not the way forward. We can collaborate to create a systemic shift. And I think for me, that's the most important thing, for us to have that mindset that we need each other to drive the change that we want to see in the world. No one can individually change the world, except we want to lie to ourselves. No one. If there is a leader that is driving the change, we need people with us, right? To help us drive the same, to send out the culture, to create that shift. We need humans, we need people. So I think that's the most important thing for me, for anyone who wants to collaborate, either social entrepreneur or entrepreneur, to understand that we need each other and we can work together. The second thing I think I would just add to that is the fact that we need to listen. We need to listen to each other's perspective. There is a reason why a social entrepreneur is thinking the way the social entrepreneur is thinking. Based on the system the person understands, there's a reason why the social entrepreneur is thinking the way the social entrepreneur is thinking based on the system. We don't need to have conflict over these things. It's about how can we listen to each other. And when I mean listen, I don't mean listen to just understand, but listen to feel and see where the person is coming from and see how that is instrumental to creating successful projects and programs. It's not a fight. It's not a tussle. It's about real change and impact. So I think our focus should be more on what's the change that we want to create and how we can work together to build systems to drive that change. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the answer, Tony. I just feel like a lot of the times your answers are really resonating in different fields, not only like professional field, but also even interpersonal in general. Yes. So I think it's wonderful to have you here. And we are running out of time, but I do have a more and more question that is actually a question from the audience too.
Okay.
Actually, several people, they are telling me, are asking about this, is what keeps you motivated to do the amazing work that you do?
The amazing success stories of women who are driving change now. The fact that it's no longer a Tony story, it's a we story. Even if it's just one in 2 years, that one, God, is one of the most life-changing things that could happen to me. Just to see that the people who we call marginalized, poor, illiterate, just to see that they are changing systems from within, that keeps me going, honestly.
Perfect. And would you give any advice to the social entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs that are watching us live now?
Your idea is valid, go for it.
I love it. Yeah, just do it in a way.
Just go for it. It's valid. As long as it's changing, creating a change, don't worry about the numbers. Don't worry about what people think. Don't worry if nobody believes in you. Your idea is valid. Go for it.
Totally.
Do it.
Go do it. I love it. Thank you so much, Tony. It has been really a pleasure to have you today. It's been an honor to have and to meet you and to see a little bit of your work through the video. Would love to just go and visit you, but we're a little bit far away.
Please come.
We'll love to, really. Thank you so much, Tony.
It's been nice. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
And thank you everyone who is watching us live today and who is also watching the replay. I would like to remind the participants who are watching us live to please scroll down and click yes to the survey that you're watching live so you can receive your extra points. And also don't forget that next week we will have the practical assignments of the course and you will need to upload them to the platform. So we'll see you everyone next week on May 9th with our guest expert, Peter Awin. He's the co-founder of Cow Tribe, which is one of the case studies that we're going to be studying next week for the 4th live webinar of the course. So thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to have you, Tony. Bye, everyone.
Bye.